Well, hello and welcome to the channel. My name's Johnny and you are watching Hillbilly Modeling. So this is going to be part one of our new build, and it is going to be our Russian heavy tank JS-2 model 1944 ChKZ. Now, when I did the preview on this kit, I hadn't read the instructions yet, so I didn't really know what that meant. So I did go into, once I did read over it, and I do recommend you read your instructions fully so that you kind of understand how the kit all goes together before you get started. And apparently the ChKZ is the factory where this tank was built. And according to the instructions, it is the... and I'm going to slaughter this, I have no doubt. All right. Chelyabinsk Kirov factory. So that's Chelyabinsk Kirov. So that's what that means. That's where this tank came from. So that's what we're doing, and it's in 1/35 scale. So this is going to be part one. Did I say that before? I think I did. So now, one of the things that I don't talk about very much, I maybe only mentioned it maybe twice in all this time that I've been doing the channel, is the cleaning of the parts. And not all manufacturers have the same type of release compound and everything. As you can imagine, these parts will stick in the molds if there's not something there to help them, release, which we call release compound. The problem with this little film that can be on the parts, and I know some of you guys never clean your parts, you never wash them, and you don't have any problems, and that's fine. I have had instances on a trumpeter kit, a Zvezda kit, and there's another one, it might have been an ICM kit, I don't remember, but where it did cause problems, and also the oils and stuff from your fingers, can cause issues with the paint actually adhering. So I recommend that you clean the parts, and most manufacturers tell you to do the same thing. So I'll just let you know how I do it. And you can choose, if you've been cleaning parts and you don't have any problem, that's fine. If you're new to modeling and you're not cleaning your parts, then you might want to do that. That would keep you from having any little issues there with your paint sticking. Now, the way I like to do it, and it's very simple, very easy, I do use this right here. So this is Windex, window cleaner, and it does have ammonia in it. And what I'll do is I'll just simply take the parts, and the parts on the sprues, just be very careful that you don't want to knock parts off. And I will spray down the surface with the Windex, and then I will take a brush like this, very long, soft bristles. That way I don't have to worry about knocking parts off of the sprue, just lightly go over the part, and it'll kind of bubble up for us, and just kind of scrub it in, to all those little areas and stuff like that. And then we'll just simply rinse it off under some warm tap water, right? Just running out of the sink, and kind of clean all that Windex off, just kind of rinse it off. And then, especially parts like this that have these nice deep holes here, you'll probably have to do a little tap there. You want to get most of that water out, and then all we have to do is lay it down on a towel that I lay out on my workbench here, and then let it dry overnight. And we don't have to worry about that release compound anymore. And hopefully that will keep us from having any little issues, with the paint not wanting to adhere to it. So yes, I believe that it's always a good practice to go ahead and wash all of our parts. So with that being said, next up is construction. So let's start this part one. We'll jump down on the bench here, and we'll get to building our JS-2. Okay, let's take a look at our instructions here. And as you can see on the front here, we have a little bit of history. And yeah, read this before you begin. That's a good idea to do. And we've got our paint instructions and tools. There we go. So we're going to start off right here with step 1. And as you can see here, we have step 1. We're going to be working on our support roller right here. And it does have the small poly caps. And then for our road wheels, they've got the medium-sized poly caps. And then for our drive sprockets, they've got the large poly caps. So we got 3 different size poly caps here. So now also in step 1, we do have our front plate, and it's got some spare track parts on it there that we'll need to put on. And then we have the rear plate as well, and we'll be able to build that up too. So we are going to need some parts, and these are the sprue cutters that I'm using. These are made by Steady, and they're really good. They have a stop screw, which really aids in keeping the jaws here on our sprue cutters nice and sharp. By using and running that screw down, it keeps those sharp edges from slamming into one another, which would really be bad for a cutting edge. So I do like these. So we're just going to cut out our support rollers here, and some people call them return rollers. And as you can see, I cut the sprues long when I cut these parts off the sprue. That way I can get in close. And we do have to be careful here to not cut into the circumference, the round edge there. We don't want any flat spots. And then we'll just sand that down smooth. And we will do this with all of our support rollers. So there are 6 sets, which makes 12 wheels that we've got to clean up. And I'll go ahead and clean those up. So next we do have the caps that go on over the hubs. And as you can see, they have that kind of undermolded sprue gate on there that we got to trim off. And so we'll just cut that off flush with the surface. Now this is the glue side, so I need to buff that down a little bit. And then of course we'll take and give it a little round off there. Get rid of any little bit of a polystyrene that's left over there. That way it'll seat nice and flat. So we got to do all 6 of those. So these are the little teeny tiny poly caps that goes inside our support rollers here. So we're going to need 6 of these. Now they do give us 8. I do not know if we're going to use any more of them in the kit, but they have given us 8. I guess we'll find out later on when we get further down the line. So we'll go ahead and cut those off. So now when we go to cement these up, our front and rear rollers here are keyed. So we do kind of find the where the key is there, and it's a really small key, so you need to kind of test fit it so you kind of know what that feels like and what it looks like. So I think the best way to do this is go ahead and put a little bit of extra thin there, and then we can just rotate it until our key falls into the little slot. And once it does, we'll just make sure that we press it together there. And very carefully, we'll just reach down inside there and add a little bit more extra thin. So I guess that key is there to make sure that we line up these little holes there. Those are clearing holes that are in our support rollers. So we just want to make sure that that looks right. And then we can go ahead and drop in that little bitty poly cap. Make sure that it goes all the way down. Now, unlike previous Tamiya kits, you know, a lot of times either the whole hub is a poly cap or it goes in between the road wheels. In this case, you put the, well, not the road wheels, but support roller. And then we drop our poly cap in, and then we put our hub cap or bearing cap there into place. And it is also keyed, so we need to make sure that we get that lined up. And it's all good to go. And so that's a support roller made up. So we've got 5 more to do. Now, I always like to kind of keep all of these items together, and we don't want to lose them or they roll off the bench. So I'll go ahead and put them in a little cup here, and we'll set those aside. So next up, we do have our road wheels. That's the next part, and we are following our instructions. I know it's not normal for me to do that, but we were going right along. Same process here with cutting off the sprue gate, and also with the caps. You can see that we do have that little sprue gate that is on the bottom side there, and that's the area that we're going to be gluing, so we do need to clean those up too, just like we did on our support roller caps. So these take the medium size poly caps, and they do give us 2 bags of these. So be careful that you don't lose them. They're not on a sprue or a fret or anything of any kind. And our road wheels are keyed. It does have a small key and a large key, so you need to make sure that you get those lined up correctly. And we're going to do the exact same thing here. A little bit of extra thin. And then we'll be able to go ahead and put this one together. Making sure that those little keys are lined up correctly. And we'll go ahead and just the same way that we did our support rollers. We'll add a little bit more extra thin there so it'll go around the joint. And the poly cap goes in from the outside. And I am going to orient it so that I know I know where that key is supposed to go. And we'll just put a little bit of extra thin there and put our cap on. And like I say, it is keyed, so you need to make sure that it kind of locks into place. So we need to make up the other 13 sets. So I'll go ahead and take care of those. So in keeping with keeping everything organized, we're going to go ahead and put all these in a little plastic cup here. And that keeps our workbench uncluttered because I do not like clutter on my bench. Now, we have the large poly caps here for our drive sprocket and hub assemblies. We only have 2 of these to use. They give us 4, and I'm not sure, but I think the other 2 goes for the gun, so we'll find out later. Now, these are keyed, as you can see, and we just need to put it together there, make sure that our key is engaged, and that keeps our drive sprockets, those cogs on the ends there. We want to make sure that all those little teeth are lined up. So you do need to pay attention though which side this poly cap goes in. So I'm re-looking at the instructions here because it kind of looks like it could go on either side. So you got a big side and a little side, and you're looking for the side that's got the 2 alignment notches. As you can see, one has alignment notches on one side and the other side doesn't. So the alignment notches are for our cap that's going to hold our poly cap in place. So we need to make sure that we're getting it into the right side there. At first, I almost assembled it backwards. So I just want to point that out, and then we can go ahead and put our cap on the end there, and that will retain our poly cap. And a little bit of Tamiya extra thin there, and it's going to be all set and ready to go. And of course, you know, there are only 2 of these to make up, so I'll go ahead and make up the other one. So next up is our front armor plate. And now, as you can see, right where these toe points go, there is a little rectangular box there. So the way the tab on this is offset, you want to make sure that you put this in, and then that little groove, that little outline goes around the periphery of our actual part that we're putting on. That way we know that we don't have it upside down, which is nice. It can be confusing sometimes on knowing exactly how these go on. So it's nice that Tamiya has included that little outline for us so that we can make sure that we've got them oriented correctly. And we don't want to get them upside down. Somebody would scream at me, you know you put those on upside down. So we do have this little bitty spring latch that goes on the bottom here, underneath those toe, I don't know what they're called. Are they called T's or something? But at any rate, these little latches are there to keep the tow cables from jumping off. Now, you might want to leave these off if you plan on putting your tow cables kind of attached to the front, because it's going to be hard to get that tow cable loop between the attachment point there and that little spring piece. I mean, it might go, I don't know, but I'm going to have mine clipped to the rear, so we are going to attach these latches here to the front plate. And that's what it's supposed to look like. So next up, we do have some spare track sections. Now, you may want to leave these off for painting. I do paint mine kind of on the vehicle, so it's not that big of an issue. Now, it is keyed so that you can't get it backwards. So we have two little alignment pins here, and I'll just put some Tamiya extra thin on them there. And then we'll set it into place. Hold it for a second, make sure that it grabs. And yeah, it looks good. So we do have two other spare track sections here, and the alignment pins there are also offset so that we don't get that upside down. And it will just mount right onto the front plate there. And of course you have the one on the opposite side. And once we get it all together, that's what it's supposed to look like. Very nice. Okay, so let's move on. So on our rear plate, you can kind of see where we've got that hinge detail there. It does have an angle there, so our toe points that go onto the rear of the tank, they do have a little angle there. So we need to make sure that we get those into the correct side. Now, they are numbered differently. So, I mean, I cut them both off at the same time. So that's, if you get them mixed up, this is the way that you would identify them, making sure that you get that angle correct there. And then we just cement those into place. And Tamiya assumes that you're going to follow their instructions and put your tow cables on the rear of the vehicle, so they don't have us put those little spring latches on yet. But we do need to remember those for painting, okay? And then we do have a couple of track sections here that needs to go onto the rear plate. And we're just going to cement those up. A little bit of Tamiya extra thin there, and we can just put those items into place. Very easy, and if you just follow along with the location of the pins, you can't get them wrong. Kind of love the engineering that Tamiya really puts into their kits here, because they make it they make it hard for me to screw it up. All right, so back to our instructions. We've completed part 1. We'll move on to part 2. And we've got all of our running gear to go on, and our front and rear plates, and those little side wings there for our slack adjusters. Yep, this tank does have slack adjusters. And I think we're just going to first kick off with the hull parts here. So the first thing we're going to put on would be these little extension plates here onto the front of the hull. And I'm just going to lay down a little bit of Tamiya extra thin so the part will grab. And you would have to try really hard to get these backwards. So they are numbered differently for left and right. But as you can see, they're only going to go on one way. And we will add a little bit of extra thin. And once we get the right side on, we'll go ahead and put the left side on. And it's important to get these on, I think, first, because, I mean, the instructions doesn't tell us to do these first, but as you can see, the front plate goes up against them, so it kind of makes sense that way. Now, this plate doesn't really fit right, and as you can see, it kind of wobbles. So the problem here is those little spring latches that we put on, their tabs kind of extend right below the surface. So we need to go ahead and trim that off. So I'll just cut those off there with the sprue cutters, and then we will go ahead and sand them, right, and get them nice and flat, because we don't want anything to hold this plate off, because I don't really want to use, and we're going to have to use a little bit of filler, but in this case, we can totally eliminate the possibility of that just by cleaning that up. So we'll go back and test fit again, and that's pretty much the key. Even with a Tamiya kit, as you can see here, test fitting is always important. You would expect a Tamiya kit to go together no problem, but in this case, you can see we did have a little issue. It's not a big deal, but if you're throwing on a lot of cement and trying to stack parts on top, you may run into an issue. So always test fit, and we'll just cement this into place. And of course, you're going to want to make sure that you have it pushed all the way up and that seam closes up. And it will. It closes right up, and it looks nice. Very nice. Same thing with the rear plate. Once we clean it up, it goes right on. No issues there. We can cement it up. Now, I imagine we're probably going to have the same issue with the little spring latches that go under the toe points there for the rear plate, with those little tabs being too long, which means they're not going to seat very well. So we need to make a mental note of that. We need to trim those down before we paint them. Next up, we do have some bump stops, and these just limit the travel of the road arms here. And as you can see, it just really nice assembly here. It's so easy to do. I'll put a little bit of Tamiya extra thin there so it'll grab the part. And then we'll just run a little bit of extra thin around the edge of it, as you can see here. And we will continue down the side of the vehicle. So we have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on each side, so a total of 12. So we'll go ahead and cement all of these on. And with all those on, this is what it's supposed to look like. Very nice. So the lower hull is building up rather quickly. So we do need to assemble the I keep forgetting what these things are called. These are the mounts for our support rollers, and you do have to put the pin or the axle or spindle into place here. And as you can see, it just slides right down inside there. I do put just a little bit of Tamiya extra thin in there first, and then we slide the pin into place. It's not keyed, so you don't have to worry about that. And we have to make up the other 5. So next up, we do have some brackets that need to go on to our lower hull. We're going to put those on first while we can still kind of reach it, not have anything in our way. Now, these parts are numbered exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which one goes left or right. And we're just going to cement those up. Now, these are for the, there's a rake, I guess, or a mud clearing claw that goes onto these, which we're going to leave off. We're not going to put those on once we put the final drives and the drive sprockets into place. We just need to put these brackets into place first. And next up is a little bit of Tamiya extra thin here to mount these mounting points here for our support rollers. And we do have 6 of these to go on, 3 on each side. And I like to put just a little bit of Tamiya extra thin so it'll stick into place there. And then we can run it around the edge, make sure that it's secure. I know I probably use too much extra thin, but I like to make sure that they're well installed. We don't want anything breaking off or falling off of the model, especially when we're painting or during final assembly. So the next parts we're going to install are going to be the slack adjuster and the rotating arm there for the slack adjusting road wheel. And these parts are numbered differently, so you need to pay attention to which side they go on. And as you can see, these parts do pin together there. So we put the adjuster on first, and then we slide the arm in and make sure that it gets lined up. Put us a little bit of Tamiya extra thin there, and that is done. It's in place. So we have one more to put on the opposite side. And with our other front slack adjuster in place there, I always like to take a look and make sure that those pins are not, kind of flying or flapping or, that it's all lined up and it looks right. We don't want to have any issues when we go to put our tracks on. Next part to install is going to be our hubs here, our final drives. I almost called it the wrong thing. So these are our final drive assemblies. Now they are not keyed, so you can just stick them on there and throw some cement on it and do both the left and right sides. So now it's time for road wheel arms. Now the front two road wheel arms are the only ones that are different. As you can see, it's keyed different there. It's got kind of a teardrop shape pin, where the others just have a little round pin, as you can see there. So just make sure that we get the front ones installed first, and then we can just slide all these into place. Now we're not worried about the alignment yet, because Tamiya has provided us with an alignment bar, which is really great. And here's that bar, and you can kind of line it up, slide it on over the spindles there on our road wheel arms, and that's going to help keep everything in line. And then we'll just go down the line here and cement all of our road wheel arms into place, making sure that we get enough there to kind of wick down into place and hold those in. And then we can go ahead and do the opposite side. It goes together the exact same way. We just slide all of our road wheel arms in, and then we'll slide our alignment bar into place here. And we're going to push it all the way down. And as you can see, that's the way that goes. And we're going to do the exact same thing that we did on the opposite side. Cement all those road wheel arms in into their location. And we do both the left and right side at the same time. And the reason why is because we're going to want to set everything down on a nice flat surface with those alignment bars in place, and just put a little bit of pressure on it there and make sure that it's all lined up. So that was easy. So let's go back to our instructions. We finished up step 2. Step 3 we've got, yep, everything on 2, everything on 3. So next up is step 4. We do have a toolbox and some fuel cans to do. So when it comes to the toolbox, the end pieces do have this funny little bevel there to make sure we got a nice sharp corner and there's no unsightly seam, because I imagine these boxes were either welded on the corners or they were, press made. So you don't want a seam that's out of place. So they use that bevel there. And then we have to put the one side on, and it just sets into place. We'll cement it up, and I'm kind of doing this from the inside to kind of alleviate any excess cement on the outside. Not that that's really a problem with Tamiya extra thin, but as you can see, that's our toolbox. That's all done. And then we do have external fuel tanks. Now they are pinned slightly offset. That way you somebody like me can't get it backwards. So we're just going to cement these together. They go together really well. as you would expect from just about anything that Tamiya makes. Now I am using wooden clothespins here, which really work well on rounded surfaces to hold it together and make sure that we've got full contact there. And with that in place, we can go ahead and put our end caps on. Now, if you look down inside there, you can see that there is a slot and that our end caps there for our fuel tanks, they do have a pin. And those are going to just slide into place there. And we do need to turn them, make sure that that pin goes down into that slot. And then we can cement those up. So we do have 4 of these to make up. Now, as you can see here, as with a lot of seams on rounded areas, they don't necessarily line up that well. It's just part of the molding process. But we're going to go ahead and sand this just a little bit here. And we're going to sand all these seams. And we'll be able to see the areas that we're going to need to fill on these. And just kind of try not to sand a flat spot on a round surface. So as you can see, I am kind of rotating it back and forth here to get that sanding done. So with it lightly sanded, you can see that we can still see our seam. So it's going to need to be filled. So what we're going to use to fill that is some Mr. Surfacer 500. So Mr. Surfacer 500 is a little bit thicker than the 1000, so it works really good for filling these really small seams that we kind of got left over here after our preliminary sanding. So I'm just going to kind of dab this into place here, and we'll come back later after this is all dry and do the finished sanding on our fuel cans. So we're not going to be able to put the mounts on, but we're going to do something else with the mounts anyway. So we're just going to get this all done on all 4 of these and set these aside and let them dry for us. So onto our instructions here. We have finished up, well, we're working on these fuel cans. We're going to leave those brackets off for now. Let's see, step 5, we're going to put all of our road wheels and support rollers and our drive sprockets on. And yeah, so let's go ahead and put those on. So I've given it plenty of time. You need at least 30 minutes there before you remove these alignment rails. We don't want to be moving these around, you know, when we go to press on our road wheels and stuff. So we'll start with the road wheels. And with those poly caps, it makes it easy to put them on. And we still need to be able to remove these for painting, weathering, and all that stuff. So we'll go ahead and put all of our road wheels on. And then, of course, we got our support rollers. We will put those on. Those got those little bitty poly caps in those. And then for our drive sprockets, we'll go ahead and put those on. Very nice. That looks good. So I'll go ahead and put everything on the opposite side. So let's talk about these scrapers here a little bit. So the next thing they want us to do is to put these into place. Now I'm just going to show you what happens if you do with these tweezers. Hopefully it doesn't go flying. I think I got a good grip on it. So the way it goes is it goes into that bottom slot there on that bracket that we glued onto the hull. And as you can see, it really extends up inside of our drive sprocket. That's supposed to rake all that dirt and mud and stuff out. But if we put those on now, as it says during, you know, in the instructions, then we're not going to be able to remove those drive sprockets. So we're going to paint those up separately, and we will put them on when we're in our final assembly. So that's just something to take note of. So that's step 5 done, except for those little brackets that we're not going to put on. So when it comes to step 6, we have our jigs, and we have all these little bitty links. Well, they're not that small, but this helps us get that sag, get our sag for our swag. Yeah. So, looking at our tracks here, you can see that there are these little bitty ejector pin marks on them, on those flat surfaces there. That will probably be seen, especially on anything that is on the bottom. So you can fill these if you want to. I'm just going to use this rounded off X-Acto blade, and I'm just going to scrape them down. There are a handful of them that are a little bit proud, but most of them are just slightly below the surface. So we can just kind of blend this by scraping it. And as you can see right there, they will disappear. So I'm not really worried about, having any scrape marks or anything here. That rounded blade does a good job of taking care of it. So we've got a lot of them to do. We've got 2 sprues of these that we need to go ahead and take care of. Now I've already removed the jigs, as you can see here, which we're going to get to next. So if you look at the instructions here, it tells us attach D1 and D3 alternately. One side includes 34 links. And then, as you can see, for the left side, you start off with the D3, then the D1, then the D3, then the D1. Then for the right side, we start off with the D1 and do D1, D3, D1, D3. So it's important to make sure that we keep those top sections there separately. And as you can see, you need to pay attention to the direction that they are going in. So make sure that you get that orientation correct, or they're not going to fit correctly. Also, down here they tell us apply masking tape, or applying masking tape will prevent track links from being cemented to the jig. Now that's kind of important. we don't want to cement these to the jig. I don't know why they didn't say that before they told us to put it together. I would have put that little note ahead of the instructions on where to put these, the order of assembly. So I'm going to mark our jigs right here. We got a left jig. So we're designating these jigs as a left jig and then a right jig, so that when we go to assemble this, we are assembling them according to the instructions. We don't want to get this mixed up because our tracks will be backwards on one side. So, all right, so we've already got it designated which one goes where. So I'm going to be using Tamiya masking tape, and this is the 6mm. Yeah, 6mm tape. And, of course, it's in this dispenser. And I don't really want it in this dispenser for what we're about to do, because we need to lay down this masking tape in a really long, continuous piece. We don't need to piece it together, because if there's any masking tape overlap, then that might upset the alignment of the track, and we don't want to do that. So we're just going to lay this masking tape down. Now you can use whatever masking tape that you like, I guess, but it is a Tamiya kit, and I think this masking tape does have a really slick top surface, which will prevent our tracks from adhering to that jig, and we don't want that. So we'll go ahead and tape these up. And that is what it looks like once we get all of our tape on. And just make sure there's no bubbles or anything, or wrinkles in our masking job here. And it just going to suspend that those tracks above the jigs. And hopefully it won't glue to it. So I have everything cleaned up here, and I have 2 little cups here. These are the D1 parts that have the guide horns on them. And so we need to make sure that we kind of keep these separate. And then we have our D3s, which are the 2-piece shoes that do not have a guide horn. As you can see there, they just got a seam down the middle of them. And these are going to be put on alternately. So we're going to start off with the D3, and this is for the left side. And as you can see, the way the shoes are oriented, we need to make sure that we are following the instructions here. So the pin side goes on first, and then those cleats are going down the jig. And then we will go to the D1 with the guide horn, and it's going to go on next. So yeah, it's kind of slick, kind of moving around on me there. But that's kind of how that's going to go, and we need to make sure that we alternate between our D3, D1 all the way down the jig. So let's see how this goes. We'll start lining these up. And I will say that these shoes really fit together. Each one of these track shoes fit together really nice. So I'm starting to run into a little problem here. I don't think it's a good idea to lay them all down on there because as we go over the top of the hill there, over the high section of the arch, the shoes are sliding down. So I want to go ahead and cement up this section here that we've got that's kind of in the saddle there. And then once we get that done, I think the best approach is to slide each one of these up into place here. And yeah, I'm thinking the best way to do this is to glue them one at a time. So that's what I've done. I went ahead and went from there and just put each one on one at a time and cemented it into place. I mean, it goes pretty quick. I mean, it just listen to the radio and watch TV or whatever you're doing, you know, and put these together. So we do want to make sure that it is setting down and flush with the jig. And we will set this aside and let it dry, and we need to do the opposite side. Now, since we do have a left and right top track section, as you can see here, when you're fooling with the model, you can flip it around and everything, and you might lose track of where the left side and the right side is. So, for simplicity's sake, and to keep me out of trouble, and this might help for you, we're going to go ahead and mark the left and the right inside the hull here. Yeah, that's not a very good R, but so penmanship was never my best. But anyway, we are marked now. So when we accidentally or through our working, we get the tank flipped around, we still have something to remind us who's left and who's right, so we don't get mixed up. Okay, so a quick recap here. If we look at our front armor plate there, we got those little spring clips there that go underneath our toe points. Yeah, they are, I put them on the front just like the instructions said for us to put them on, and we have left them off of the rear because I'm going to kind of maybe follow the instructions. I don't know. But those toe cables will be attached back here, and if we put those into place, then that's going to be a problem. So we're going to have to paint those up separately. So those have been left off. And the instructions doesn't tell us to put them on yet. So we are following the instructions so far. We did also mark the left and right side of our lower hull there, so that as we work on this and we flip it around, we don't accidentally mix up which side is left or right, and we start putting tracks on the wrong side. So that would be bad. And we have our track sections all glued up here on our jigs, and we did mark them. This is the right one, and it has set up long enough. I do wonder if it will come out of the jig. Oh yeah, pops right out. That's nice. I was wondering because I did put a lot of cement there in a couple of places, kind of by accident, but you know, it's there. So that side, the right side, is fine, And then we got our left side too. Oh yeah, that came right off. So yeah, looks good. Got our swag on. All right. So yeah, we didn't get to finish up the tracks. We'll do that in the next video. So it's all we got done. It's all we got time for. So hey, special thanks for all of you subscribers. I really appreciate you guys, and you're the reason why I keep making these videos. And I hope that you enjoyed this one as much as I have enjoyed so far building this kit. And it looks like it's going to be a great kit. So oh. And if you guys are not a subscriber and you like the content and I've earned your subscription, go ahead and subscribe. Why not? It doesn't cost anything. And I guess that's going to be it for this part 1. So you guys look forward to part 2, which is be coming up next Friday. So you guys stay safe, and I'll see you then.